プーチンは負けますか？
負けます。もう終わりです。仮にウクライナ戦争が敗北って形にならなくても、実はプーチンさんを含めてロシア国民全体がもう世界の孤児で、おそらく100年元に戻ることがありません。日本でもロシアでも中国でもアメリカでも世界と共に生きるしかないのが今の地球ですから、プーチンごとロシアはすでに負けました。ウクライナ戦争の結末を待たずにもう負けました。
This is a statement by a Japanese Diet member. Only the audio is quoted. It is a short video on YouTube and has already been viewed over 1.4 million times. Quite a statement by a sitting Diet member, but is it true?
Pretty much everything they have told us about this war since the very beginning has been a lie. And again, most people don't know because our news is so controlled by the U.S. government, one of the things we've learned from the Twitter files. But very quickly, let's run through some of the things they've told us. They told us that sanctions were going to cripple the Russian economy. Joe Biden said that in a speech to the country. Did it? Well, this summer, the Russian ruble hit its strongest level in 7 years. And just a few months ago, Russia posted a massive trade surplus. Russian propaganda? No, economic facts. Our policy isn't working. In fact, it's counterproductive. From January to September of this year, Russia's trade surplus was $120 billion higher than it was in the same period last year. It's double Russia's previous record set in 2008. That's what our sanctions have done. Remember when we were told that Putin would be crippled by sanctions? Liars. Rebel News reporter called Jeremy Lafredo just went to Moscow to see what is happening there. Turns out they're doing okay. What we're doing isn't hurting them, only us. Grocery stores in Moscow are not empty, they're not running out of food, and their food prices aren't bad either. Watch this.
Upon walking in, I was surprised. It seemed like not only a normal grocery store, but it was absolutely full of food. Barilla pasta, which you can get at any grocery store in the States, was stacked so tall that I would need a ladder to reach the linguine. But I remained skeptical because surely the New York Times and the Washington Post wouldn't be lying. How expensive is everything? Russian stores could have food, but with inflation and shortages, items could be so expensive that no one can afford it. First I went to the milk aisle. Kefir, 1%, 2%, 3%, and even 4% milk, yogurts, and fake dairy alternatives. They had a lot of options. I got a liter of regular milk. It was 89 rubles or $1.41. Then I made my way to the meat section. They had beef, chicken, turkey, pork, and even rabbit. I settled for a pound of ground beef, which was 175 rubles or $2.78. The total for milk, eggs, beef, bread, and mushrooms was 499 rubles or $7.92. Surprisingly, it seems the mainstream media is not being entirely truthful in regards to the effects sanctions are having on the prices of essential goods in Russia.
So there's no question that we will be accused of Russian propaganda for playing that clip, not that we care. But it gives us the chance to make a very obvious point. That's news. Those are facts. We are bringing you information. You do with it what you will. That's not propaganda. Propaganda is when you withhold information from the population in order to affect a policy they don't actually support. That's what North Korea does. That's what the Soviet Union did. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why we're grateful that Jeremy Lafredo actually went to find out what was happening. He's with Rebel News. He joins us tonight. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on. I'm certain you will be attacked as a tool of Putin, but let's ignore that and get to what you saw there. It looked from the grocery store that sanctions are not hurting Moscow too badly.
Yeah, I was on my way to Russia and I saw the New York Times said that there's Soviet-era shortages. The Washington Post said something along the lines of that there's essential goods scarcity. Foreign policy, they put out a report that said that the economy in Russia is in a black hole that's, of proportion that's never been seen before. And so, I was a little nervous going there. And, I went to rural areas outside of Moscow, and I went to grocery stores like you just saw. And, things were cheap, and, they had more things than, the Whole Foods here in New York City. And, what is the goal? What is the goal of these sanctions? The goal is obviously to cause unrest, shortages, make people unhappy with the government. Hopefully people will take to the streets. And at the end of the day, we want regime change in Russia. Right. We want a different government. But as you can tell, that's not happening. No. I spoke to hundreds of people in Russia, and they fit into about 3 different categories of how they feel about the sanctions. The first category of people they, consider themselves Russian patriots, and they don't care if they can't use Netflix. They don't care if Spotify's gone. They don't care if they can't send money overseas. They believe in the cause, and they support their government. And then another group of people, maybe you would consider them, liberals. We have them everywhere. And they oppose the sanctions only because they can't go on vacations. They can't, watch Netflix. And they oppose the war because they oppose the sanctions. They just want to live how they normally live, which is a relatively comfortable lifestyle. And then the other group of people, they don't even notice anything's happening. Maybe they just buy food at the store. The gas is cheap. They drive around. They're not affected at all by these sanctions.
Right. Well, the point undergirding all of this is we're affected by the sanctions, and so is Western Europe, and they're crushing our economies. So let me just ask you very quickly, just for the record, were you accompanied by a Putin government minder? Was your reporting dictated or driven or steered by anyone from the Putin government?
No one from the government, any government, was with me. I was by myself, walking around documenting what I was seeing.
And we're grateful that you did, because more information, the free flow of information, is essential in a democracy. Jeremy Lafredo, thank you so much.
I'm Jeremy Lafredo for Rebel News in Moscow, Russia. Upon arriving in Russia, I was told that I should visit one of the oldest farmers markets in the region, Preobrazhensky Market. About 10 kilometers outside of the center city area, the market has a different type of clientele than downtown. No Prada stores and no H&M, which are actually littered around downtown Moscow. Here at Preobrazhensky Market, it's just regular folks that come from all around the region to sell their goods. Mostly vegetables like spinach, kale, and radishes. Also pickled vegetables like carrots, cabbage, and onions. Sellers also have stands filled with fruit, such as pomegranates and oranges. Some vendors are selling items for the quickly approaching winter, like slippers and winter coats. They have an indoor space with farmers and butchers who are selling meat such as chicken, dozens of different cuts of beef, lamb, duck, and pork. They also have dairy products. No one inside of this market is willing to talk to me. They say their bosses are watching them on a security camera. I'm not sure if that's true, but I went outside and I spoke to some people. That was until the police came. I asked people at the market if the prices of goods have changed since the war began, and about the war itself.
Not prices for many types of fruit and vegetables are just the same as the previous autumn or rather less.
Ну, в некоторой степени, но не сказал бы, что заметно. Вот. В некоторой степени изменились, конечно.
Do you support what's happening in Ukraine, the military operation?
I'd like that war finish as soon as possible.
Я не буду отвечать на этот вопрос. Провокационный вопрос.
Я не хочу отвечать на этот вопрос.
Most people I spoke to at the market were not willing to speak on camera about the war. Those who support Russia's actions in Ukraine might be hesitant to speak to an American about their support, since the US has been propping up the Ukrainian military with billions of dollars in weapons. Our two countries are effectively at war. This woman called for peace, but also explained her view was that the conflict is not Russia's fault.
Все миром кончится. Все кончится миром, рано или поздно. Ну, знаете, это политика, это, конечно бы, Россия не виновата. Россия не виновата. Да, это политика, там еще никто не знает, правильно?
実はルーブルは通用しないので、ドルと交換してもらって生き延びていて、それをレーガン大統領という一種の天才が見抜いて、ドルとルーブルはもう交換させないという挙に出たから、スター・ウォーズ計画関係なくて、それでそのショックで91年12月にソ連邦は潰れたわけですよね。もう一段踏み込んで言うと、あらかじめロシアを組み込んでおいて、世界経済の中に組み込んでおいて、ズバッと外すと、ズバッと断ち切る。要するに何が起きるかというと、ルーブルがまず紙くずに近づいてるわけですね。ルーブルが紙くずに近づくってことは、庶民にとっては何が起きるかというと、今まで例えば日本円にしたら1万円の価値のあったルーブル紙幣が 紙くずに近づいていくってことは、逆に言うと物価がとんでもなく上がっていくことになりますよね。だからいわゆるパンが買えないっていう状態になり、銀行預金が知らない間に紙切れになってしまうってことにもつながるわけだから、不平不満が全土に広がるっていう事態が、むしろこれ起きない方が不思議であって、中国ほどではないけれども情報をかなり閉ざしているからはっきり見えてないだけであって、すでにその混乱は始まっていることが間違いがないんですよね。
In his New Year's address to the nation, President Putin said,
Дорогие друзья, с 2014 года, после крымских событий, Россия живет в условиях санкций. Но в этом году нам была объявлена настоящая санкционная война. Те, кто ее затеял, ожидали полного разрушения нашей промышленности, финансов, транспорта. Этого не произошло, потому что мы все вместе создали надежный запас прочности. То, что мы сделали и делаем в этой сфере, все это и направлено на укрепление нашего суверенитета в важнейшей области, в экономике.